Two armies faced each other. They stood on opposite hills. Between them lay a valley, the valley of Elah. One army was the Philistines. They were strong and feared. The other was the Israelites. They were God's chosen people, but now they were afraid. For many days, nothing happened. It was a war of waiting. Each morning, the soldiers woke. They saw their enemies. They felt the tension. No one wanted to make the first move. It was a stalemate. The Philistines had a plan. They wanted to avoid a full battle. A champion fighter, one man to fight for them all. This was an old tradition. Winner takes all. But the Philistines had someone extraordinary, a giant. His name was Goliath. He came from Gath. He was a giant, over 9 feet tall. Imagine standing next to him. He was built like a fortress, strong, imposing, unbeatable. He wore heavy bronze armor, a bronze helmet on his head. His spear was like a weaver's beam. A shield-bearer walked before him. Goliath was a walking weapon. Every morning and every evening he came out. He stood and shouted his challenge. His voice boomed across the valley. "Choose a man and have him come down to me. If he is able to fight and kill me, we will become your subjects. But if I overcome him and kill him, you will become our subjects and serve us." For 40 long days this continued. Goliath mocked the Israelites. He believed no one could beat him. The Israelite soldiers heard Goliath. They saw him and they were terrified. King Saul, their leader, was afraid. His bravest warriors were afraid. No one stepped forward. How could they? To fight Goliath seemed like suicide. This fear was like a disease. It spread through the camp. It crippled their spirits. They were an army. They had numbers. But against Goliath, numbers meant little. He was a one-man army. Their training, their weapons seemed useless. They felt small and weak. The challenge was not just physical, it was psychological. Goliath was fighting with fear, and he was winning. The Israelites felt defeated. They were trapped by their own dread. They waited, hoping Goliath would go away. Far from this scene of fear, life went on. In Bethlehem there was a young man. His name was David. He was the youngest son of Jesse. He was not a soldier. He was a shepherd. He looked after his father's sheep. This was his world. Hills, pastures, and his flock. A simple, quiet life. David was young, perhaps still a teenager. He was ruddy and handsome, but he was not big and imposing. He did not look like a warrior. His brothers were in Saul's army. They were the soldiers in the family. One day, Jesse called David. He told him to go to the battlefront, not to fight, but to take food to his brothers and to bring back news. David heard Goliath's words. He saw the giant. The words echoed in his mind, each taunt a slap to his faith and courage. Goliath's voice was like thunder, shaking the very ground beneath David's feet. But instead of trembling, David felt a surge of something powerful within him. He saw the fear of the Israelite army. The men who had once been so brave now cowered in the face of this giant. Their eyes were wide with terror, their hands shook, and their hearts pounded with dread. It was a sight that stirred something deep within David, and something stirred within him. It was not fear, it was surprise. Then it was anger. How could these men, the chosen people of God, be so afraid? How could they let this Philistine defy the armies of the living God? The anger within him grew, fueled by his unwavering faith and his sense of justice. How could this man defy the armies of the living God? How could he stand there, mocking and taunting, without fear of retribution? David's fists clenched, his jaw set in determination. He knew that this was not just a battle of men, but a battle of faith. How could everyone be so afraid? This was not right. This was not the way it was supposed to be. David shook his head in disbelief, his heart heavy with the weight of the situation. He could not understand why no one else saw what he saw. David did not see what others saw. Where they saw an insurmountable obstacle, he saw an opportunity. Where they saw defeat, he saw a chance for victory. His mind raced with thoughts of how he could turn this situation around. They saw an unbeatable giant, a warrior so large and powerful that he seemed invincible. The sight of Goliath struck fear into their hearts, paralyzing them with dread. But David's perspective was different. He saw a man insulting his God. They saw overwhelming strength. He saw arrogance and blasphemy. David's eyes narrowed as he focused on Goliath, his mind clear and his heart resolute. He knew that this was his moment to stand up for what he believed in. He saw an opportunity for God to show his power. David's perspective was different, his background was different. He had spent years as a shepherd, protecting his flock from predators. He had learned to trust in God's strength and guidance. He had faced danger before. He had stood against lions and bears, creatures far more fearsome than any man. And he had emerged victorious, not by his own strength, but by the strength of his faith. Lions and bears had attacked his sheep. He had fought them and won. Each victory had strengthened his faith. Each battle had prepared him for this moment. He knew that with God's help, he could face any challenge. He spoke to the soldiers around him. His voice was steady, his words filled with conviction. He reminded them of who they were, of the God they served. He urged them to see beyond their fear, to find the courage within themselves. What will be done for the man who kills this Philistine? His question was not just about the reward, but about the honor and glory that would come from standing up for their faith. He wanted them to see the bigger picture, to understand the significance of this moment. And takes away this disgrace from Israel. His words were bold. They were a challenge, a call to action. David's resolve was unshakable, his faith unwavering. He knew that with God's help they could overcome any obstacle, no matter how great. David's words reached King Saul. The king was desperate. The Philistine giant Goliath had been terrorizing the Israelite army for days, challenging them to send out a champion to fight him. But no one had the courage to face the giant. The morale of the troops was at an all-time low, and fear had gripped the hearts of even the bravest soldiers. He had offered rewards to anyone who would fight Goliath. The king's proclamation promised great riches, a place of honor in the royal court, and even his daughter's hand in marriage. Riches, his daughter in marriage, and tax exemption for the hero's family. These were not just ordinary rewards, they were life-changing offers that could elevate a commoner to nobility, but no one had dared. The fear of Goliath's immense size and strength paralyzed them. The battlefield remained empty, a silent testament to their collective dread. Now he heard of a young man, a shepherd boy, David, the youngest son of Jesse, who spent his days tending to his father's sheep in the fields of Bethlehem, who spoke with strange confidence. Saul sent for David. The boy's words were bold, filled with a faith and assurance that seemed out of place for someone so young and inexperienced in battle. He wanted to see this boy. Could this shepherd truly be the answer to their prayers? Saul's curiosity was piqued, and he hoped against hope that David might be the one to deliver them from this menace. David stood before King Saul. The young shepherd, with his simple clothes and humble demeanor, seemed an unlikely hero. The king looked at him. Young, small, a shepherd, not a warrior. Saul's eyes scanned David from head to toe, his doubt evident. How could this boy stand a chance against a seasoned warrior like Goliath? David said to Saul, "Let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine. Your servant will go and fight him." Saul was astonished. The conviction in David's voice was undeniable. "Your servant will go and fight him." Saul was astonished. He had never seen such determination in someone so young. "You are not able to go out against this Philistine and fight him. You are only a young man." Saul's voice was filled with concern and disbelief. How could he send this boy to what seemed like certain death? "You are only a young man, and he has been a warrior from his youth." Goliath was not just any soldier, he was a giant, trained in the art of war from a young age, and he has been a warrior from his youth. The image of Goliath, clad in his formidable armor, loomed large in Saul's mind. But David had an answer. He was not deterred by Saul's doubts. He told Saul about his life as a shepherd, how he had faced lions and bears to protect his flock. David's experiences in the wild had prepared him in ways that Saul could not understand. He had learned to trust in his skills and in his faith, believing that he could overcome any challenge, no matter how insurmountable it seemed. Saul tried to give David his own armor, a bronze helmet, a coat of mail. David put them on, but he was not used to them. They were too big, too heavy. He tried to walk. He could not. "I cannot go in these," he said. "I'm not used to them." So he took them off. He would fight his own way. David chose his weapons, not a sword, not a spear. He took his shepherd's staff. He went to the stream in the valley. He chose 5 smooth stones. He put them in his shepherd's bag. His sling was in his hand. This was his weapon, the weapon of a shepherd, simple, unassuming, deadly. Goliath saw David approaching, a boy with a staff, no armor, no great sword. Goliath was insulted. The moment of truth arrived. Goliath moved forward, lumbering, confident, ready to kill. David did not hesitate. He ran quickly towards the battle line, towards the giant. This was not the action of a frightened boy. This was the action of someone with a plan, someone who believed, someone who knew the outcome. As he ran, David reached into his bag. He took out a stone. He placed it in his sling. He began to whirl the sling, faster and faster. This was a skill he had honed, protecting his sheep, hours of practice, aiming at distant targets. Now his target was the giant's forehead. The stone flew from the sling, straight and true. It struck Goliath on the forehead. The giant stumbled. He fell face down on the ground. When the Philistines saw their hero was dead, they turned and ran. Panic replaced their arrogance. The once formidable army, now leaderless and demoralized, scattered in all directions. Their confidence shattered. They fled the battlefield, leaving behind their weapons and pride. The Israelites shouted their triumphs, and their voices echoed through the valley, a chorus of victory and relief. The long-standing fear that had gripped their hearts was finally lifted. They had witnessed a miracle, and their joy knew no bounds. They chased after their enemies. The fear was broken. The stalemate was over. The Israelites, once paralyzed by the giant's taunts, now surged forward with newfound courage. They pursued the Philistines with a fervor, determined to secure their victory and ensure their enemies would not return. A great victory was won that day. It was not just a triumph of arms, but a triumph of spirit. The battlefield, once a place of dread, was now a symbol of hope and resilience. The Israelites had proven that faith and courage could overcome even the greatest of challenges, all because of one young shepherd and his extraordinary courage and his unshakable faith. David, with his simple sling and unwavering belief, had changed the course of history. His actions showed that true strength comes from within, not from the size of one's weapon or the weight of one's armor. David's victory was more than just a military triumph. It was a lesson, a powerful, timeless lesson. It taught us that even the most unlikely of heroes can achieve greatness. It reminded us that faith, courage, and determination are the true measures of a person's strength. It showed that appearances can be deceiving. The giant, with all his armor and weapons, seemed invincible. But David, small and unassuming, had the heart of a lion. His victory was a testament to the power of inner strength and conviction. What looks like a weakness can be a strength. David was small. He was agile and quick, able to move in ways that Goliath could not anticipate. His size, which seemed like a disadvantage, became his greatest asset in the heat of battle. He was not a soldier. These were his advantages. Goliath underestimated him. The giant's overconfidence was his downfall. David's lack of traditional armor and weapons allowed him to think outside the box, to use his wits and skills in ways that a conventional soldier might not. Saul's armor would have hindered him. It was heavy and cumbersome, designed for a different kind of warrior. David knew that to succeed, he had to rely on his own strengths and instincts. He had to be true to himself. The story teaches us about courage, not the absence of fear, but acting despite fear. David felt fear as any person would when facing a giant, but he did not let that fear control him. Instead, he used it to fuel his determination and resolve. Not the absence of fear, but acting despite fear. David's heart must have pounded in his chest, his mind racing with thoughts of what could go wrong. Yet he stepped forward, his faith guiding his every move. David must have felt something, a mix of fear and hope, doubt and faith. He was human after all. But in that moment, he chose to focus on his faith, to believe in the possibility of victory. But his faith was greater. It was his guiding light, his source of strength. He believed that he was not alone, that a higher power was with him, guiding his hand and steadying his heart. He believed in something bigger than himself. This belief gave him the courage to face the giant, to stand his ground, and to ultimately triumph. David's story is a reminder that with faith, courage, and determination, we can overcome even the greatest of challenges.